Welcome to WAHNcast, the official podcast of the Women's Affordable Housing Network. This is our space to connect, get real, and talk about what's really happening in housing, from bold leadership to resident stories that ground us in purpose. We're here to amplify voices, strengthen each other, and share the kind of conversations you'd have with a friend who gets it. Because when our voices are amplified, our communities grow stronger, and so do we. Welcome to WAHNcast, the official podcast of the Women's Affordable Housing Network. I'm your host, Angie Truitt, and today we're suiting up for a powerhouse conversation about what it means to be an ally in this industry. On the field with me today are Abe Kruger and Ben Goetz, our Ally Committee co-chairs who've been calling the plays and leading the charge to build stronger support for women across the affordable housing community. We're also joined by two MVPs in the allyship arena, Mike Duffy, WAHN's Ally of the Year for 2025, whose leadership has set a high bar for what it means to show up for others. And Brian Philps, our Indy ally extraordinaire, who's been driving real wins in Indiana with his dedication and advocacy. Together, we'll break down the game plan for creating a more inclusive, equitable industry and talk about the teamwork it takes to move the ball forward. So let's kick things off. Abe, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, where you work, what you do.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm Abe Kruger with SK Collaborative. We're based in Atlanta, Georgia, but we work nationwide, and we're green building and building enclosure consultants. So we've got active projects in about 20 states, U.S. Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. I like to say we are that third-party verifier. So if you want to get a Energy Star certificate or a LEED plaque, we're coming out to make sure things were done properly, though we're not actually installing insulation or swinging hammers.
Do you get to go to the Virgin Islands or Puerto Rico?
I wish we did. I get to send my colleagues now from time to time. Those projects tend to mostly be virtual inspections, unfortunately. Our other work is in places like Miami, not too bad, Pittsburgh, PA. We do get to go to some interesting places.
That's good. All right, Ben, you're up.
Angie, with that rousing intro, I feel like we got to be like, I coach my son's little league football team, so it's let's go. We want to get up and get moving, right? Because I feel like this is like a virtual high five tunnel when they run out. Totally. Yes. So everybody get that energy. Also, I'm wondering if with Mike's Ally of the Year award, that's like the Walter Payton Award. Like he's going to get a patch that he gets to wear around now.
I think we can make that happen. Do you need a patch, Mike?
Yeah,
absolutely not.
Anyway, stoked to be here, kicking this thing off. I'm Ben Goetz. I am the Vice President and Director of Originations for Churchill Stateside Group. We're a nationwide lender specializing in tax credits, affordable housing, workforce housing. We're based in Florida, although I am based in the Ohio, near the Ohio State University, of which I'm an alma mater, or an alumni. That's my alma mater. And they're doing okay from last season to this season. Love that. But we do all things 9%, 4%, construction, perm lending, acquisition lending, pre-development lending, you name it, we want to help you with it.
Well, a lot of T fans here are not really happy after that game that opened this season, but I'm not a UT fan, so it's okay.
Yeah, I saw a funny meme where Eli and Peyton were like, he's adopted.
All right, Mike, who doesn't want a patch, go ahead and tell us a little bit about you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mike Duffy. I'm co-owner of Roanoke Construction and the Oakland Group. I have been working in affordable housing for 25 years this summer. I am also an alum of the Ohio State University, which we are contractually obligated to say every time we talk about it.
OH.
Yeah, IO. And graduated there in 2002. I was in graduate school and got an internship at Ohio Capital Corporation for Housing, a regional tax credit syndicator based in Columbus there. And that's where I learned the work. I was in a city planning and public policy program in grad school and didn't know what I wanted to be when I grew up, but I got an internship and it taught me a trade. And I've been doing that ever since. So I stayed there for 2 years and then came back home. I'm from St. Louis, Missouri originally, and worked 3 years here in St. Louis for Ohio Capital's sister organization locally, St. Louis Equity Fund, both members of the NASLEF organization. And then in 2005, got recruited by McCormick Barron Salazar, which is headquartered here in St. Louis and works nationwide on large scale, mostly urban inner city redevelopments, primarily fueled by programs like Hope 6 and Choice Neighborhoods, and did that for about 14 years. Left there in 2019 and took a year back in the equity space, working for a state tax credit syndicator out of St. Louis to try to figure out what I wanted to do for the balance of my career. And an old friend of mine from high school, who's also been in affordable housing his whole career, had started a construction company in 2012 locally. And it was, other than working for a bank directly, it was the one side of affordable housing I hadn't done yet, which is work directly for or as a general contractor. So I took the leap into entrepreneurship in June of 2020, right at the start of the pandemic, weirdly, and joined his company, bought into the construction business, and we formed a development consultancy called the Oakland Group that we've been working mostly in Missouri, but also throughout the Midwest in helping folks, usually nonprofits, but also some for-profit companies that have a really good idea, a really good development that needs to be repositioned, and providing them that technical expertise and assistance in getting developments underway. So in 5 years, we're up to about 500 units under ownership and hope to maybe double that over the next 5 years.
Wow. And I know you don't want to patch, but it really is a big deal that Mike was nominated and awarded the Ally Award of the Year by WAHN. It's completely driven by our members' nominations, and there were some incredible ones about Mike. So I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit more later. But thank you, Mike, for all you do. All right, Brian, close us out with intros.
Cool. Thank you. I'll take the role of the special teams coach. I'm boss here. But Brian Philps, brand ambassador and outreach manager at ICDA, which is short for all of the syllables, in Indiana Housing and Community Development Authority. We are a state HFA, or housing finance agency, and follow the full gambit of everything from mitigating and preventing homelessness to energy programs to the forward 9% tax credits, multifamily, single family, where we have mortgage products and homebuyer programs and the like, but really a lot of other things too that revolve around providing housing opportunities, strengthening communities, and promoting self-sufficiency. I've been here for 24 years.
Wow.
Wonderful run. And I'm also blessed to be a board member on the Indiana WAHN chapter. So glad to be here.
I love that. And I saw Brian and I hadn't met, but he's very active on LinkedIn and promoting Indiana WAHN and women in general. And we really appreciate that. Abe, we're kicking off a new Ally Community Initiative. Tell us a little bit about the Ally Committee's history and about the Ally community.
Yeah, I would love to. So I think we are the youngest of the committees, founded in 2023, and our founding chair was Mark Shelburne. So originally, Mark's kind of task was to figure out, how do we engage with allies? How do we engage with men within the industry who want to support their female colleagues within the industry? And one thing we quickly realized was that not everyone wants to join a committee. That word, capital C, committee, can be a little intimidating for people. They think, oh, what's going to be the time commitment? Is this going to be a bunch of meetings? What does this mean? And that's really where the Ally community grew out of this. Is yes, we need a committee to help make decisions, to help drive our engagement, but really we also need to tap into the hundreds, if not thousands, of men within the industry who want to support their colleagues. And so that is this community initiative that we're launching right now. And I'll pass it to Ben if he wants to add to that.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's a natural transition, and we got to give Mark the biggest high fives possible for having established that and creating this culture and this standard of this is where we can come as allies collectively, take all of our individual ideas and motivations, perspectives, whatever, and bring it here. And I love that this is really the next iteration of that, where the early days was, who do we find that really isn't bringing their own agenda to the table, which is, I think, vitally important. I think it's vitally important that any ally that's going to come in and want to help with WAHN in any initiative isn't really bringing their own stuff. It's more of, how can I be a benefit to the great women in this industry and help them launch their vision, right? I think early days it's difficult to find some of those. I know every good superhero has like an origin story, right? Or whatever. And I think it was trying to find all of those hidden superheroes that are out there, like the Mike Duffys, to pull them out, and the Brian Philps and the Abes, like just to identify those. I know when I first was made aware of WAHN was at a AHF Live event when my booth was next to the grand champion Ashley's booth, and I learned all about it. And this was just after the pandemic started, about the same time, like 2021. And I was floored. I loved it. I loved every second of it. And I thought, all right, what can I do to just get in at this ground level and help them grow this vision? Because this was at the start of this vision. Ashley was just so much energy about, this is where I want to take it, and this is where we want to go. And I have this vision of where we can be in 3 years. And I thought, that sounds amazing and also crazy, but I think you can do it. And so it's bringing those guys in. And as we've identified those guys coming in, yeah, to Abe's point, having a true committee sometimes can feel like, do I have an assignment? Can I contribute? What do the women in this organization really want me to contribute? Because I don't want to give something that they don't want. But also to take away a little bit of the barrier of entry of, I don't want to feel like I need to commit resources or time or whatever if I don't have those totally available, but I love the vision. Rebrand a little bit to community, or create two different opportunities here. Bring them into our ecosphere, right? Come into the community. The water is fine, and we can use your energy, your talents, your time, whatever you can contribute. Come and join us. And if you have some more ability and you want to serve a role or an assignment or responsibility, then we'll have a more formal committee that you could contribute to. But we want you to be a part of our community so that we can hear your passions and your stories, and you can bring your energy to put it behind some initiatives wherever those may be. We're doing events and conferences all over the country as we're trying to grow this, and we need people everywhere.
Yeah, and I think all of that's so great. Both of you said some wonderful things, and we really appreciate you being pulled in with Ashley's excitement and vision. But I love what Mike said. We actually used you, Mike, in a commercial for Summit this upcoming year when you were interviewed at this past Summit. And he had a really great statement on there that said, usually when I go to conferences, I see a bunch of guys that look like me. And it was really great to be in the presence of women leading the discussion, women asking the questions. But I think it's really critically important. Everything we do is for our residents, and the vast majority of residents in our developments are women. And so the fact that you guys are willing to come to the table and have conversations and listen and help us grow our vision is huge for us, because ultimately we're here to serve them. So Abe, tell us a little bit. I know you mentioned some ally community initiatives when you and I were speaking last about it, and you wanted to put some structure behind that just so that people have an idea, if they have some time, if they have some capacity, what is it that they can do? We get asked that question a lot. I want to help. How? You want to run us through a little bit about what your quarterly goals are?
Yeah. So like you said, we wanted to bring a little bit of structure and set quarterly goals for initiatives. And so every quarter we have something planned. And then obviously on a rolling basis, we are here to be tapped to help however possible. And so these asks might come from individual chapters, it might come from national, but we want to be there like in waiting if something needs, and we can spring to action. But at a minimum, in the first quarter of the year, we're doing sponsorship follow-ups. So a big part of being an ally is simply helping with fundraising. It's helping national with getting sponsorships, either at the national level or for individual events. So in Q1, we're getting tasked with, all right, hey, do you know anyone at this organization? Can you help us with our fundraising goals? In Q2, we're volunteering at the National Summit. So the summit is open to men. We are welcome and encouraged to attend. But the Ally Committee and the Ally community is tasked with all the volunteering support positions. So when you go to a conference, oftentimes when you go to registration, it's being manned by women. Oftentimes when you are in a session and someone's running a microphone around for the Q&A, it's a woman doing that. And so we wanted to flip the script on this. And Mark Shelburne gets a lot of credit for this because it was such a wonderful and really simple idea of just, hey, let's let the guys do all those support positions. And so when you go to Summit, it is men who are working at the booth. It is at the registration table. It's men who are at the merchandise table. So if you want to get some WAHN swag, it's going to be a guy working there. It's guys running microphones. It's if a speaker has a need with their tech, it's a guy who's going to be tracking down the tech support. So that's what we're doing in the second quarter. In third quarter, we're doing panels and education. So an event like today, where we're talking about, last year, our session was on effective allyship. And then in Q4, to close out the year, it's the sponsorship asks, but then also we like to do a day of action or visibility. So last year, it was getting allies to commit to a particular day to promote the Ally Pledge. And so on social media, you were saying, I took the pledge, you should too. This is what the pledge means to me. This is what allyship means to me. And so that's what we're doing in the fourth quarter.
And I want to talk about the Ally Pledge in a minute, but you mentioned at Summit seeing the men in positions that are traditionally manned by women. It has such an impact on our membership. We get tremendous amounts of positive feedback just from that. Our members who attend just love the visibility of our allies being there, being helpful and supporting us in that way. And I had a great story from this past summit. Little Claire Melkai, who's actually from Columbus, and Ben knows her, and her dad gave a welcome to our WAHN Impact session, but she's 9 years old and couldn't quite reach the podium. And the hotel brought some huge box for her to stand on, which wasn't workable. So I went to the ally table and I said, can someone run to Target, please, and get us a stool for Claire? And I think Ben scrambled, found a couple of guys who could just leave registration and run to Target, which was a few blocks away from the hotel. And they texted me a picture and they're like, does this work? It was perfect. And they brought it back. We got a picture of them with Claire, like giving her, but that was just an example of something that we didn't have to worry about putting on the summit. We had allies had our back and they just ran an errand. I'm sure they probably had fun running around Target looking for this stool, but we appreciated it. It made a tangible difference for us at Summit. So we really like having you guys around for all of the reasons. That just takes a lot of pressure off of us when we're trying to put on a big national event.
Oh, it's a great lesson I learned from my wife about being able to make a midday Target run. Like she was like, you've been taught well.
Yes, it was perfect. And I know the OG story we like to share about Mark Shelburne, who you mentioned earlier on, Abe, is the very first WAHN Summit that we had in Atlanta. And one of our sessions broke and all the women wanted to go take a restroom break, freshen up a little bit. And there was a line coming out of the women's restroom. Mark noticed there was no line at the men's restroom. He went in and did a restroom check. No one was in there. He stood guard out front and started directing traffic into the men's room and then coordinated with the hotel staff to change the sign permanently during our stay to allow women in there, and then directed men to a restroom a little bit farther down just so that the women could get in, get out, get back into session. So just little ways that you guys show up for us, and we greatly appreciate it. So let's talk about the Ally Pledge. Abe, Ben, you guys want to tell us a little bit about that one?
Yeah, for sure. I think so. The Ally Pledge is something that Mark definitely championed last year, and it was a great coordinated rollout within our kind of email campaign, with our LinkedIn campaign. And it's a very simple statement, essentially, of some commitments that I think that any true motivated ally can commit to. And it's found on the WAHN website. And there's a section of it where it lists everyone who's publicly committed to doing that. And essentially, it puts our intent and our motivations right at the forefront to say really what we're intending, which is we want to be this resource. We want to recognize where we're at in terms of a true partner and not utilizing our relationship to WAHN or to any of the women there in the organization for things that are not going to advance the focus of WAHN. And there's a few elements to that. And I know we can talk about some stories about that, but I don't know, Abe, if you want, do we want to go over each little point that's in the pledge, or?
I think that's probably good. I'm really curious, and I'd love just hearing stories from the other panelists of kind of like how you've made this actionable and how you've actually taken the pledge and put it in practice. So I don't know if Mike or Brian want to share an example of kind of what that allyship looks like on a day-to-day, because Ben says it's one thing to just take this form and sign it and say you're committed, but it's another to actually put it in practice.
I can go. So yeah, this pledge was introduced to me about this time last year. I was part of the fourth quarter effort by you all to make the pledge and then be public about it on LinkedIn. And it actually resonated with me primarily because when I decided to join my partner Kevin in his business 5 years ago, and we were sketching our kind of combined business plan on the back of a napkin, we talked about our previous employment experiences over the first 20 years of our career and what we would like to do, what we'd like to change about those experiences from past positions of not being in leadership, but being managed by other folks, and then what we'd like to replicate. And we both had both positive and negative experiences in our career with various forms of mentorship and the like. And what we really committed to as partners is he and I have basically been raised in very typical Midwestern middle class families. So we're not necessarily silver spoon kids, but we've also been given a lot of advantages and a lot of privileges due to the fact of where we were born and how we were born and to what families we were born. So we wanted to be very intentional in building our business in who we hired and who we chose to mentor and the like. So there's three parts to the pledge: professional, organizational commitments, individual commitments, and then supporting your WAHN chapter commitments. And it really resonated with me based upon what Kevin and I had decided to do in our own kind of hiring and mentorship practices, seeking out folks that probably didn't get the same kind of opportunities we did early in our lives and then early in our careers, and really work to build the next generation of folks that hopefully in conferences I'm going to when I'm at retirement look a lot differently than they have been over the last 20, 25 years.
Brian, what about you?
Yeah, for me, I think the pledge for me was supplemental to things that were acknowledged that I was already doing. So I just feather in the cap or just an enhancement to what's already happening. The way I wound up getting connected with WAHN was at the Indiana Housing Conference, and they had a booth, and without realizing it, they just complimented me on how supportive I've always been, and that, oh, this might be a good thing. Maybe you should be on our board. That just came out of nowhere. I wasn't expecting that. And I feel that at the core of all of us, we don't look for the recognition of doing those things. We just naturally do them. So it's great to hear that. And it just motivated me even more to get in and help. And one thing I've definitely done is put myself in a position to not try to disappoint them, my chapter. And I've taken on the role of doing all the communications, take that off their plates and let me help them tell their story. And as a board member and as an ally, I definitely take a back seat. I don't need to be in the photos. I don't need to be in the videos, thing like that. So I'm just really here to elevate the profile. And that's been my statement, is how do I best elevate the profile of Indiana WAHN and bring national along the way? For me, in action is mostly dealing with the events committee outside of the communication stuff. And they do the heavy lifting on getting it coordinated. And I step in and I handle all of the video footage and all the photography and setting up the banners and getting the room set up as much as I can and just being there. I try to make suggestions from time to time, but I really just let them tell me what they need and what I can do to help. And that's really it for me. I'm somewhat proactive, but mostly reactive to things. But again, I just don't want to let them down. So I definitely carry a lot of that feeling with it. And as long as they're happy, I'm ecstatic. So
I love that, Brian. I love, and Mike, that what you shared, because, and when I was with Brian in Indiana, the housing conference a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about making a shirt, right? It was like, ask me how to ally or something like that, right?
Yes.
And we're just walking around and we're like,
I love it.
That's a brilliant idea, because I think the question of individuals outside of the ally community, or maybe who hasn't taken the pledge or even you reviewed it, is, what does that look like? What do I do? How do I be a part of the community and be meaningful, or even just be around? And I think we got to ask those questions, because it's one of these things where you just be. It's who you are. It's ingrained in what you are. And we all do it in a different way, but I think it's that base level intentionality that we bring to it, right? So you've got these great stories where it's practical. I do the same with my Ohio WAHN chapter that I love supporting, where I do the same thing where I sit back and go, all right, I'm happy to do anything. I'll set the table. You tell me when to be there, when to close up shop, set up the banners, or it's something simple as that, or something larger, like maybe helping provide some content or whatever. One of the things that I'm really rewarding is when I'm asked to be a part of a panel at an industry event. Number one, I am full of imposter syndrome, and so I already hate doing that. But one thing that we commit to with the Ally Pledge is being mindful of what that panel construct looks like. And what Mike was saying earlier, he goes to conferences and sees just a bunch of guys like us, right? If I look at the panel construct I've been invited to, number one, after I get over my fear, number two, I'm going to look at, is it just a bunch of guys that look like me? And if that's the case, I have been vocal, and I was a little nervous to do it at first, but I've been vocal to go to the coordinator and say, I really appreciate the invite. However, I've made this commitment as a supporter of WAHN that I'm not going to do a panel with a bunch of people that just look like me. So what can we do to adjust this and bring in some female voices? Because I'd love to help, or maybe I'm secretly saying I don't want to help because I'm scared, but I'd love to help. And by so doing, I've been able to change the makeup of that panel. And it doesn't, at least by my estimation, it's not like ruffling feathers. And I think that, I believe that the content is better because of it. And I've even supplemented myself on a panel and brought one of my female employees in and said, I want to give her this opportunity because I think she's great. She's not as scared as me to do this. And she's fire. Like, she can do that. And I think it's been really rewarding because it educates upstream to individuals who are like, I didn't know about WAHN, and I didn't realize that you're providing this commitment level, and that's cool. So it starts a discussion, and it's helped driving awareness.
Also, to clarify, Ben, it was national WAHN branding or local branding. Are you our next ally?
That's what it is. Are you our next ally? Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love all of it. We'll just make a ton of ally shirts.
Yeah. The other thing I wanted to add is I think it becomes natural that you carry it with you. It becomes part of conversations. At the conference a couple of weeks ago, I think we made it a point to go grab men and bring them to the table and talk to them and show them the QR code and say, this is what we do. This is what this is. Are you ready? And I take that with me in my day to day. When I talk to people, I say, oh, have you also heard of WAHN? And we have this chapter. So it's become part of my walking around talking points, things like to naturally WAHN is built into my day to day interactions and conversations as well.
I think that's so important because I've met some people. I was talking to somebody just last week about an episode of the WAHNcast that we did with a phenomenal woman. And he was very interested in the content. He said, I've seen your posts about WAHNcast, but I just didn't think that related to me and my work. And clearly I was wrong. And that obviously launched a conversation about the ally community and the ally committee and everything that I love about what you all do. But it's so great for us to have you all as a natural platform to help spread what we do, because it isn't just for women, right? It's to benefit the entire industry, and your voices carry that message a long way. So thank you to all of you for that. Abe, did you want to share any ally in action examples?
A lot of folks just need to take the blue pill or the red pill. They need their eyes opened to some of the things at play. And that's where being on a panel and pointing out the lack of diversity is so important, because I do think that there's just some, and I say this without judgment, but just some ignorance at play, where I think it's just people, oh, I know these people, so I'm going to reach out to them and put them on the panel. And so there's just these blind spots. And so I do think that for a lot of folks, they're well-intentioned. And when you point this out, they're like, I didn't even think about that. And you're just like, you should have. But okay, it's okay. And so I think that's a big part of allyship, is being able to talk to the folks like your peers like that. Because I do think that oftentimes that message is going to be received a little bit easier. So that's where I see it, is definitely as I'm assembling panels or being asked to be on panels. So I love Ben's example there. But then it's also as a business owner, and I'm responsible for hiring. Like looking at who are my colleagues and how do we approach diversity, and very much looking at it through the lens of, I want a company that's like reflective of the construction industry. I want a construction industry that's reflective of society. I want a construction industry that at all levels is reflective of society. And like for us, like diversity is a strength. It fluctuates, and depending on how you slice and dice the numbers, we're over a third non-white employees, we're about half female employees, but I want folks who have different backgrounds than me, because I want them to approach problems and questions from different directions and from different angles. As we're sitting around the table, like, I don't want just cookie cutters of me all thinking the same way. I want people who are like, oh, that's interesting. I approach it from this direction. And I can be like, I did not think about it at all that way. But so we do better because of it. So again, like, I just think about it through this lens of diversity is strength. It's an asset. And like, the industry benefits from this. I benefit as an individual from this.
I agree. Mike, so we talked a little bit about you winning the Active Ally Award, which was created in honor of James Cromartie, who we lost several years ago in a tragic accident. But he was known in the community as being somebody who always took a stand for women in the industry. And so we take this award very seriously. And like I said, reading through the nominations that we receive for all of these wonderful men every year. I'm a crier anyway. If you guys have seen me at Summit, chances are you've seen me cry multiple times. I couldn't get through reading those nominations without tearing up, because being a woman at the table in a time when the industry I came from, the practice of law, was a completely different world than it is today. I know what it feels like to not be listened to be judged. I was told by the managing partner of my law firm that he doesn't like to hire women because as soon as we get pregnant, we get lazy. And I was like, you're a lawyer, man. You're not supposed to say that stuff out loud. I'm sure you think it, and so I asked to go down to part-time so that I could spend more time see my daughter when she was actually awake. And part-time in law was still 40 billable hours, which translates to 60 working hours. And they ignored my request. So I just quit the firm and found a different job. But it's wonderful. It's such a small act by an ally, as much as if you notice that somebody has interrupted a female colleague and maybe she doesn't feel comfortable calling them out for the interruption, but maybe you do. Something that simple, gosh, makes such a difference. And you guys are all practicing it and walking the walk and talking the talk all the time. But just for our listeners who may think, I just don't know how to do this. You guys have a whole list of simple things that you can do. And I love that we're going to do a campaign to get people involved, and they can just make little changes every day that make big changes for women in the industry. Mike, let's talk a little bit more about winning the Ally Award. Tell us a little bit about what that meant to you.
As I think you may remember, you learned that I am a crier as well. First of all, I was not aware that I was being nominated. I found out after the fact, and actually first thought it was a practical joke that somebody was trying to play on me. I don't really seek much in my career for any kind of public acknowledgement of my efforts or anything like that. And I've been involved with the Missouri Workforce Housing Association for a long time, but very active since I formed my own company 5 years ago. And Jeff Smith, who's our executive director, is the one that I think that sort of led the nomination. And so he mentioned it offhandedly on a call I was having with him. And I just said, oh, that's funny. But then found out it was real. And also, I don't know who wrote those nominating letters, but I guess Jeff organized a group of folks. But yeah, many people who were on the committee that selected me came up to me at the conference and said what you just said, Angie, about the nice things that people said about me in their letters, which again was frankly all the reward I really needed, was to hear that people with, that I obviously know, but didn't know they were doing this, were reflecting on my actual kind of behavior and actions that they've had with me over my career. So that was very humbling and very rewarding to hear. But yeah, it meant a lot to me. And I decided to talk at the conference about what I think has informed me in my allyship over my life. And it was all about my mom, who has been the strongest foundation for me and for my success, both personally and professionally in life. And so that's what was most rewarding for me, is I think it's basically a testament to her great work. She was a single mom of 5, and I was the middle child. So as I like to say, I was the forgotten kid. I wasn't allowed to be a kid. She had a focus on my older brothers and my younger sisters, but I learned a lot from her. I learned a lot from her about how to take a whole set of bad circumstances and make a positive life out of them and raise a strong family. And so it was that's honestly the most rewarding piece of it, is how I feel to ultimately attribute to my mom and everything she's done for me.
Can you share the story that you shared with us at Summit about helping her?
Because you're trying to get me to cry again?
No, you don't need to cry. And no one's going to see it anyway. So you can get sniffly, and I'll even edit it out if we need to. But it was such a great story. I tell it to everybody, not the crying part, but just the great story.
Yeah, I'm sure there's video out there, and someday somebody will find a way to put it up at one of my Missouri conferences or something to embarrass me, which is fine. I love being embarrassed, especially talking about my mom. But so as I mentioned, she was a single mom. She got married a second time as I was leaving high school, and that second marriage didn't work out. And I had moved home from grad school and from working at Ohio Capital and started working at St. Louis Equity Fund here locally in St. Louis. And we have a great nonprofit in St. Louis that's been around forever that I got to know in my working at St. Louis Equity Fund called Beyond Housing. And Beyond Housing is based in St. Louis County and has primarily focused on building homeownership opportunities, mostly for single mothers through the low-income housing tax credit program. They pioneered 30 plus years ago this kind of lease purchase concept in light tech development, and has a really great charismatic leader in Chris Krameyer. And Chris became kind of somebody I looked up to and a little bit of a mentor of mine. And when my mom got divorced, she had nothing going on professionally and was really down, and I needed to get her out of the house basically and get her out doing something. So I called up Chris one day and said, "Hey Chris, you got any volunteer opportunities? I just want to get my mom out of the house for a bit." He's like, "Absolutely. I'm a nonprofit. I'll take any free labor I can get." And so I sent her over there. She was thankfully a willing participant in my little exercise. And about a month in, got hired on part-time. This is probably 03, 04. And it was really the kind of starting part of what became that massive foreclosure crisis recession in 2008, 2009. And she was a foreclosure prevention specialist. They were getting some grants that were helping folks stay in their homes and not get foreclosed upon. And over a short period of time, from starting out as a volunteer, she became the head of the foreclosure prevention program at Beyond Housing and worked locally, but became renowned nationally, had an opportunity to meet all the CEOs of all the major banks, Citibank, JP Morgan, Bank of America. Got invited to the White House for a symposium on foreclosure prevention during the Obama administration, and just recently retired a few years ago after a late in life 20-year career that really just started with me trying to find a way to get her out of the house for a minute. And in winning the award, and this is the realization I had actually literally up on that stage that day back in May, that was what I feel like was maybe my first major act as an ally, was helping her find something that could help her pass the time, but then having just a little bit of a part of having her basically have a wonderful career that she's super proud of. And despite her retirement, she continues to do a little bit of part-time counseling. Now it's all about eviction prevention. Since the pandemic, as we know, we've had a massive eviction challenge nationwide. And so she's basically a professional mediator that's helping folks who make commitments. You sign a mortgage, you sign a lease, you make a commitment to make a payment, and life happens and you got to figure out a way to correct it. And so she's mediating eviction disputes now as well and helping a lot of people continue to stay in their homes.
Mike, that is like superhero level stuff. And the cool thing about it is okay, I'm a big fan of Brené. I think a lot of people on this podcast probably resonate with Brené Brown, but it's people first leadership. It's people. That's what she says. So that's your person. Your mom is your person. And you had no vision that she was going to become this national guru, right, in this space and help so many people, but you just cared about her. And I feel like that at the very core is like the sentiment behind what we want to accomplish with WAHN and as allies, right? Like we want to see people for people and put them in positions to better themselves just because we care for them. And then superpower stuff can come out like what occurred in your story. I love that.
For sure. Yeah. I think we are all creators of our own destiny, so to speak, but it's about putting people in positions for them to either succeed or fail. And that's really what I focus on. My entire career, frankly, is an accident. I only went to grad school because my wife, now my girlfriend at the time, got into grad school and I fell into it accidentally. I got the job at Ohio Capital that taught me this trade by just making friends with a former person in my city planning program who worked there and brought me in. And so a lot of people just nudged me along and allowed me to have opportunities to then see if I can flourish or fail. And I took advantage of those situations. I'm proud of my accomplishments, but also extraordinarily recognizing of the people that helped me get to those positions where I could succeed.
I think everybody on the call has been to a summit or been to an affordable housing conference where WAHN's had a presence. Anybody feel like sharing some experiences that you've had beyond what we've already talked about? Summit registration is open and everyone will want to sign up quickly because we're in San Diego this year at the Paradise Point Resort on its own island. So I can't imagine we're not going to sell it very quickly.
All I can say is, having attended my first one in Denver this past year, it is absolutely wonderful to be in an environment where, as a white male, I'm a minority. And so that was just an extraordinarily refreshing experience because, frankly, like I've said, I feel like very often I'm not ever in those sorts of environments. And then secondly, the food was second to none. A conference planned by women for women has so much better food than every conference. Every time I'd go out for lunch, it was an incredible spread. My recommendation for the WAHN annual conference is at least go for the extraordinarily refreshing environment and delicious food.
I loved this last year as well. I came away from it, and granted, you already, Angie, have already highlighted how busy we were, like as registration staff and just behind the scenes and doing things. And you'd think that working a lot of hours doing some of that administrative task and logistical stuff would wear you. But I actually came away from that conference feeling so energized because, I love to serve, right? So I love to be in that role. And I love all the relationships that I've made through WAHN. And so that juices me out, that feeds me, right? But there's a lot of conferences I go to. Like I'm at a conference right now out here at the Utah Housing Conference, taking a moment to come do this podcast. And it's great. I put out my booth and I do the things and we hand out all the, what I call adult trick-or-treating with all of the stuff we put out on the marketing. That stuff, it wears on you. You hold your meetings and you get on the flight home and you're happy to go home. But man, I tell you, like the energy, because of the focus, because of the mission of WAHN, I come away from it energized as opposed to drained. And I think it's, when Ashley first told me about this years ago, my version, my take on where it could go is like having industry leaders, male or female, across our industry, recognize WAHN and the summit and whatever as the same impactful, insightful type of organization out there to further affordable housing, just like we have all these other industry groups. And that means my role as the male ally is to support from behind the scenes, create space for women's voices, put their perspectives, their wisdom at center stage, and to do that with the right reasons. And so I hope that we have, I know Brian mentioned this, I'm going to be utilizing this as like a recruiting tool to send to my male counterparts to say, this is what we do with the ally side, right? Certainly, like I have made some great relationships and been able to interface with a lot of amazing women in the industry. And I think if some allies or potential ally, should I come to the WAHN Summit? Should I attend? I think the answer is yes. Like for sure, we want you there. We want you there for great reasons. We want you there to become supportive, but we want you to come and get content that you would get from, you fill in the blank from other conference, and to know that it's just because it's coming from women's voices, like it is of equal value. And these are wise, educated, experienced women sharing their knowledge.
Yeah, I'll reiterate that men can and should attend the conference, that the speakers are industry experts, incredible content, but then also volunteer, reach out to us. Because I've on the first summit in Atlanta, and it was a lot of fun. I gotta say, like just hanging out with folks and getting to everyone. I feel like one of the early things I learned in my career was volunteer at the registration table. That's the best way to meet everybody, because everyone has to come down, get their badge. And so getting to work registration, it was so much fun getting to meet all the attendees and getting to hang out with the other volunteers. And it felt good, right? Being that support role. Highly recommend everyone should attend and or volunteer.
Yeah, I look forward to San Diego. I'm going to seek my authorizations and approvals to get that in place. I feel like that's where I need to be. I did want to just briefly reference the Indiana Housing Conference and I guess give a couple shout outs, because one thing that we have been able to do is incorporate our annual day of service into the housing conference, which is a great opportunity for us to elevate two worthy non-for-profits, but also that's another recruitment tool for us, for people that want to use some PTO or just some of their personal time to come out and help with some things. So Girls Inc. is an organization that caters to young girls. We created some kits for them, and then Dayspring is another place here in Indy, and we went and did some painting and tooling up and things like that. But I feel very confident that I got at least 3 new allies out of that, on top of some new members for the agency as well. But the Indiana Housing Conference, it's put on by our agency and the Indiana Affordable Housing Council, and the council has been more than supportive of giving us a place and a space and the resources. We are a beneficiary of the charity golf outing, so we do get a check from them, and that helps us further the mission. And they give us the space, they provide the lunches, they give us all the tools and things to bring those volunteers in and to be able to be philanthropic for the day. Through the conference and through WAHN, and just a real reaction. And I feel like that energy is going to be very similar to what I experienced in San Diego, and I'm looking forward to that. I just wanted to shout them out and bring that up because the day of service is really our that's our slam dunk for the year, and there's more to come for that.
I know we're getting close to time. I don't want to keep you guys after because I know you guys have busy days, but want to talk about signing the Ally Pledge and joining the Ally community. Any final words on either of those? I know we have a lot of things planned, and stay tuned to all WAHN channels for additional information, but we'll be separating out those interested in hearing from the Ally community. You guys will get your own email campaign going forward, so you guys can stay involved and stay connected once you do find your way to us here.
My message to any potential allies is that I won't question your sincerity in doing so, but just to encourage you and keep in mind that many of our, like a board position or being a volunteer, it's voluntary. You don't have to commit to 1,000 hours of service. If you provide 1 hour of service whenever you're available to do, we'll take it. We want that. So feel no pressure to commit a ton of time, but be sincere about making an effort to commit that time when that opportunity arises. We're here, we're present, and that's really the core and the foot in the door for what that is. Don't be scared. We can talk you through it. Any of us will talk you through it and get you comfortable with it, but we are coming for you. And we do want you to sign this pledge, and we will be assertive and kind and very supportive in the process. And we look forward to you being our next ally.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well, any closing thoughts? Anybody think the Cowboys might win this week? I don't know.
No.
That was an easy one. Who does the Ohio State University play this week?
Mike, you got that?
I should know that off the top of my head. My 14-year-old actually keeps me up on the team.
I got you. I got you covered.
State already?
No, it's Ohio. So we always have this issue where it's even in my own home. I'll say, Ohio, right? Where Ohio did this. It's the Ohio State versus Ohio Bobcats. So it's the battle of 33. We got Ohio University versus the Ohio State University. Home rivalry in a way.
Abe, who are you cheering for? Who's your team, or who are your teams?
I hope this is not going to be taken too poorly, but I am from Philadelphia, so go Birds.
Okay.
I've been in Atlanta long enough. I like the Falcons, but like my heart is always going to be with the Eagles.
Well,
Brian, are you a native? Are you a native Indianan? Are you a Colts fan?
I am a Colts fan. I am a native New Yorker, but I am all over the place. So
Yankees or Mets?
Mets.
Okay, good. We could still be friends.
Yeah.
Don't like Mike.
But to my friends, Mike and Ben, I will simply say, go blue.
Yeah.
Michigan through and through.
Interesting.
Hey.
But also go Hoosiers. We're big IU football and all sports. IU Purdue some, but mostly IU, and I'm a big guy. But my New York ties take me Mets, Knicks, Islanders, and Giants.
I do think, for the record, just because this is a nearly all-male podcast, it was Angie's fault that we decided to use football metaphors through the whole podcast. I think you brought that up at the front end, so I just want to make sure that, for the record, we set that straight.
Absolutely. I'm a rabid, obviously deluded Cowboys fan. I love to talk football, but I'm smart about it because I know we aren't good. we have talent, but we can't make it do anything. So we have the same season every year, just rinse, repeat. The Astros, though, make me a little happier. And I know that everybody isn't super happy with us, but it's been years. And anyway,
You got to
they're
take
fun
it.
to watch.
You got to take it when you can. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. I enjoy it. And just a point, so Brian, it's a good thing you said Mets, because I learned in talking to Ashley recently when we were talking to Glenn Hops, actually at R4 on a podcast a couple of weeks ago, that she's a Yankees fan, which I didn't know. And I don't know why I didn't know that.
Now you have
But
problems.
we do. I told her our dynamic has completely changed, but the Yankees have not gone to the World Series since Jose Altuve came on the scene. So as much as they boo him when he plays up there, they still can't get past him. So something I'm proud of.
I
But
do
anyway.
question when I see a Yankee hat. I question if do you even know 3 players on the team. Like the Yankees hats are so trendy. I don't trust them anymore.
Yes, they just like the logo anymore.
Oh, for sure. My wife just ordered a hat for a trip we went on because she just needed a hat. Of course, it came with the Yankees logo. And I just was like, babe, you never watched baseball in your life. I love you, but just fashion.
I do Aaron Judge. I think he's a good human. He's obviously a phenomenal player. So I'm not an all Yankees hater, just the organization, kind of like everybody hates mine.
That's okay. Aaron
Both
Judge is a
mine.
Michigan grad.
Oh, okay. There we go.
Oh.
Good deal. Abe, any thoughts on Philly's Karen?
Oh, I have thoughts. I do. Yeah,
That was
wild.
crazy.
I understand the unwritten rule about leaving your section to go to the other section for the ball, but the dude went like what, 6 seats? 10? He did not go very far. And come on, he gave it to his kid. I think, I do feel bad in this world of social media where she's going to get identified and this is going to be painful. But I'm like, come on. She was out of control with that dad.
Yeah, she might have to move. I think it's going to be hard to get away from that moniker for her, but that's okay.
Yeah, just hoping
Well, I
those
like
weren't
how
season
there's, like,
tickets.
the misidentified woman.
I feel bad for her. Oh my gosh. And her husband.
Yeah, she
They're
was,
like-
but I'm a Red Sox fan.
Not me. It's
It's not me.
Definitely, yeah, her behavior was abhorrent, but similar to the guy from the US Open that snatched that hat away from that poor kid. But those kids end up getting at least something great from the athletes that witnessed all of that.
Yeah.
If there's an upside to somebody's horrible behavior, it would be that. Thank you all for chatting with me today. And more than that, thank you for being allies to women in the industry and supporting WAHN the way you do. We couldn't be what we are without you. And it's really important for us in every conversation we have to let people know we are not just an organization for women, that men are welcome here. We encourage men to join, and it's because of leaders like you that men want to. Thank you all.
This is the part where we all put our hands in the middle and go 1 on 3.
Yes, lead
1, 2, 3,
lead us,
1.
Ben. Because exactly. And I definitely want to get together on all the T-shirt ideas. So you guys will be set up at Summit and every other conference you attend and everywhere. You'll be all
I
wound
would
out.
love that. I would love that.
So,
All right. Swag.
all right. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for being here with us on WAHNcast, the official podcast of the Women's Affordable Housing Network. Every guest, every story, every listen helps us keep this space real, rooted, and resonant, and we're so glad you're a part of it. Big thanks to our guests for sharing their time and knowledge with us, to our sponsors for making this platform possible, and to you for tuning in, sharing, and helping us keep this conversation going. Be sure to follow, rate, and share WAHNcast wherever you listen, and bring a friend next time we save them a seat.